But let's go back to why 880. It's because people ask me all the time, is this intersection safe? Can I send my kid cycling to school? Can I send my grandma to the park or to get eggs or milk? So I said, look, luckily you don't have to be a PhD in engineering. All you really need is 3 steps. The 880 rule is very useful for all of them. Step number 1, think of an 8-year-old that you really love. Your son or daughter or nephew or grandchild. Once you have that boy already in your mind, step number 2. Let's think of an older adult that you are also very affectionate. Once you have that boy or girl and the older adult in mind, then step number 3. Would you send them in that intersection? Would you send them walking or cycling to get eggs or milk? Or to go to the park? If you do, it's because it's safe enough. If you don't, it's because it's not. Can you imagine the what if? What if everything that we did in San Antonio had to be fantastic for the 8 and the 80-year-olds? Then we will end up with really good communities for all. And that's the goal, how to end up with good communities for all. So that's what the 880 rule is, and that's where our name really comes from. So let's talk a little bit about what is the role of the streets. What is the role of the streets? We do many things in the streets. We do festivals and we do many activities. In some cities we do more than in others. But why am I talking about the streets? Because when you look at the cities from the air, the streets is the biggest public place. So we're going to start thinking, what is the role of the streets? For example, one of the things we do with recreating places, this one we do with PPS, this is New Haven, Connecticut. We went to New Haven, Connecticut, and we found this street corner. It's a street corner that you would not want to spend one more second that you had. It was dangerous, there was any drugs, it was dark, and so on. And then we went to the community like all of you. And we asked the community, we went not with a design, no, because we gotta turn things around. Usually the old way is that the architects would do a design and go to a community with the design. No, now you gotta go with a blank canvas and ask the community, the people that live or work or play around, what would you like? And once the community decides on the what, then you go to the architects and say, this is what the community was now designing. So we went out with a blank canvas and we had a meeting where we were asking people. So any of you, what do you think of that street corner? How could we improve that street corner? Any volunteers? Trees. Huh? Bike lanes. What else?
Lights.
Huh?
Lights.
Lights. Lights, yes. Sidewalks.
Benches.
Benches.
Awnings.
Oh my God, you guys are so much smarter than the people in New Haven. They got Yale University, but the university is better. That's exactly what they say. But after 3 hours, they say, that's why I say you're so much smarter, because you did it after 3 minutes. They said, what if we eliminate the parking the first 2 cars? They say, why? Also, that we can widen the sidewalk. And when you put a bench, and when you put a garbage can, and when you put a tree, and when you put lights, and when you talk to the private sector to improve the facade. And there are 100 ideas. When you ask the community come up with so many ideas. And this street corner came from a place that you wouldn't want to spend one more second to a destination place. And when you got one of these, it's nice. But when you got 5, you got a nice street. And when you got 20, you got a nice neighborhood. So that's the idea. What is the role of the streets? Are we building streets for cars or streets for people? It's up to all of us. Do we want our streets to look like car storage? Or do we want our streets to help create community? In many places we build these 4-story parking lots that they actually work like a vacuum, a gigantic vacuum that sucks the life out of the street and creates a ghost street. Or do we put street level activity and then we put parking in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th story? That's the idea. Here, there used to be 93 cars were parked. And when the mayor said, can we make this pedestrian? The guy at this restaurant said, oh no, if my clients don't park in front, I'm going to go broke. And next to it was a guy selling shirts and said the same thing. By the way, change is hard. Change does not happen by consensus. Many places you go, the politicians say, oh, there are still people that are not on board. There will always be people that are not on board. So the question has to be, what is the general interest? And the general interest must prevail over the particular interest. So there will never be consensus. So the mayor listened to everybody, and at the end of the day made it pedestrian. And do you think anybody went broke in this place? 50,000 people buy a lot more food than 93 cars. So don't wait for consensus, nothing. There will never be consensus. So what is the role of the streets? In the next 30, 40, 50 years, the biggest discussion in the public sector is going to be how to distribute the streets. Because it's going to be the most valuable, more valuable than gold or anything. And that has to do, we're going to have clarity on how do we want to live and what kind of city do we want to create. And I know that we seem to be facing a perfect storm. I know that we got traffic congestion, and we got global warming and climate change, and we also got obesity crisis, and we got an economic crisis, and we seem to have all of them at the same time. So sometimes we feel overwhelmed. But nevertheless, let's remember some of the things they did in places like Copenhagen when they were going through the crisis in the 70s. They realized that a perfect storm could also become a perfect opportunity. So now we're going to see how to do it. And part of it is coming up with the benefits. We're going to show how cycling and walking and parks benefit. And one of the things that we're going to do is show the benefits. We're going to show that it's good for the environment, it's good for economic activity, for recreation, for transportation, for health. We're going to show that if we're promoting cycling, we are part of the solution, not part of the problem. So that when they actually, the senators in the government of Texas, whenever they see that Robin is coming in, they say, oh, Robin, come in. They're giving him, they throw up the red carpet so they want him to come in because they know that he's part of the solution. And each one of you are part of the solution and not part of the problem. But then, but we haven't done a good enough job at it. Because we still don't have the facilities, we still don't have the programs, we still don't, we're still don't having the amount of people using transit in other ways. So let's take a look at some of these benefits. Let's say for each one of these, for some people the environment is very important, so we're going to show why the greenhouse emissions is a lot fewer if you are walking or cycling or taking transit. A municipality where I used to live in Canada had an anti-idling law, but every other week they were approving a drive-through. So you're going to be consistent between what you think, what you say, and what you do. You're going to say that have an anti-idling and be approving drive-throughs. If we're going to go somewhere, all of us, we could take 72 cars, or walk, or take a bus, or bike. This is an issue of space. Pedestrians, cyclists, and transit take up a lot fewer space. Last night I called the reception at the hotel in Atlanta and I said, how long am I going to take to go to the airport? Because, I'm going to go to San Antonio and I don't want to miss tonight. And then they say, well, it depends. If you leave at 5:30 in the morning, it's going to be 40 minutes. If you leave at 6:30 in the morning, it's going to be an hour and a half. If you leave at 7:30, it's going to be 2 hours and a half. And then, the issue is, some people say, oh, but now they're going to come up with electric cars. It doesn't matter. The amount of cars has nothing to do. Well, one thing is how much gas we burn, but that's not the issue. I'm talking about space, physical space. If this is the most valuable space, are we going to each time move the pedestrians over and over and over and give them smaller and smaller and smaller sidewalks? So we're going to decide how all of that space is ours. So what are we going to do with that space? Also from the transportation point of view. Too many people drive to the gyms to walk on the treadmills. But I don't think it happens in San Antonio, but it happens in Houston. More problematic centers in Houston. They got these 24-hour gyms. And people in Houston, they go out, they go in here. What do? They pay a monthly fee. What do they do when they're inside? You're right, they go up and down the stairs. They could have gone up and down the stairs for free. The part of it is because people don't live in walkable neighborhoods. The sidewalks are not nice, the walking is not nice, the crosswalks are dangerous, the lights are not proper, so they end up paying the gym and then they don't go to the gym because we always have an excuse not to go to the gym and so on. Walking is a mode of transportation. Every trip begins and ends by someone walking. Even if we're using our car, we're going to walk to the car. And then we leave the car and we walk to the shop. So walking is a mode of transportation everywhere, in the urban areas, in the rural areas. By the way, when I say that we need to have really fantastic facilities for pedestrians and for cyclists, it's not just because I want you to be nice. No, it's because it's sort of like a human right. It's the right to mobility. And some people say, oh, but here in San Antonio, everybody drives. No, not everybody. Even in the wealthiest neighborhood of San Antonio, 40% of the people do not drive. You know, everybody under 17, they don't drive. About 30% of the over 60, they don't drive. And if the community is not as wealthy as an explorer, but then it's not going to be 40, but it might be 50 or 60% that don't drive. So to have nice cycling facilities, and nice walking facilities, and nice transit, is almost like a human right. It's the right to mobility. And the other day I was in a community in Ontario, and someone said, oh Gil, now everybody's going to take transit because we bought these beautiful buses that are wide and tall and so on. And do you think anybody's going to get out of their car when this is what the bus stop looks like? And then this is a school in the same municipality, 1,500 students, and that is the stop for the bus stop. So then I decided to show this counselor another kind of bus stop. And then he said, Gil, why are you showing me this? I said, because maybe this is what the bus stop will look like if the decision makers use the bus service. We're going to make cycling and walking and transit a better option. Otherwise, people don't use it. I mean, there's 0.00001 will do it for environmental reasons or for health or for other reasons, or because they're going crazy. But we gotta make it a better option, or else the other people won't do it. We gotta make it a better option. So, and by the way, creating cycling and pedestrian-friendly places, unfortunately, is not one big thing. It's many, many little things. For example, complete streets. Complete streets is something that is critical. And there are many cities in the U.S. that are passing bylaws. I don't know if San Antonio has, but hopefully we'll have very soon a bylaw of complete streets. What is complete streets? It basically acknowledges that in the last 20, 30, 40 years we've been building the roads more thinking on the cars. So we forgot that we needed to do sidewalks and crosswalks and so on, and then we gotta go back and finish them. And then, but one of the things of the complete streets is to say, every time that we're gonna rebuild a road, or that we're gonna build a new one, we gotta do it thinking on pedestrians, on cyclists, transit and on cars. And then we gotta go and finish, because there are many, many places where we left incomplete streets. So we gotta go and complete streets. And that is something that would be fantastic for any city. I mean, we gotta do crosswalks in different colors and different materials. I mean, 2 lines is better than nothing, but this is obviously the bottom is even better. You know, in the US last year, 80,000 pedestrians were hit by cars. And it doesn't make any sense. And it's been over and over and over again. You know, in Vietnam, and I'm not going to minimize that, but in Vietnam we have 50,000 people killed during 15 years. During those 15 years, 50,000 people were killed on the roads in the US every year. During those, and we are still not doing anything. We know how to lower those substantially. We know that lowering the speeds, we know that stop cutting the corners, we know that putting more lights on the intersection, we know a lot of things. This is how the pedestrians get killed. You know, someone is coming out of a driveway, and then they only look to the left, and they stop next to the pavement on the road. What did they do in Boulder, Colorado? They just said, look, all we're going to do is put up a sign to look both ways, paint the lines here, and make it mandatory to stop before the sidewalk. And if you don't stop before the sidewalk, you get a ticket as if you have gone through a red light. So, and it's not a lot of money. To go from this to this is not an issue of money. And then all of a sudden it becomes safe, because this is what the cars are doing. So we gotta change those kind of things. Cycling, we need good bike parking. Where is good bike parking? Good quantity, good quality, and good location. Because you know, most of the schools, we have very few bicycle parking, and we have it in the back of the school, against a wall. The other day we did a survey in Ontario, and we asked the students, why don't you bike to school? The number one reason by far was vandalism. They said because of vandalism. I said, my God. And then we found a school where about 25% of the kids were cycling. And all of the schools near this one had less than 3%. And we said, you know, what is the difference between this one? And they said, don't you have any vandalism? They said, no. I said, why don't you have vandalism? They said, oh, because the bicycles are in front of the principal's office. So that's what we need. We need the bicycle in front of the principal's office. When we go to a fast food place, you know, the parking lot closest to the door should be for handicap. Next to it should be for bicycles. We gotta take away 1 car space and put 10 bikes. We don't want to have the bicycles on the sidewalk. The sidewalks are for pedestrians. And we don't want any fight between pedestrians and cyclists. They gotta be best friends. So all of a sudden, you know, if we have all of the bicycle parking closer to the door, so we hide that, and then it becomes a kind of contagious. And also, if they're in front of windows, the people won't vandalize because they don't know if someone is watching. So those are the kind of simple things. And someday we'll have parties such as it.